This is actually the 100th episode of the TFR podcast. Thank you to all the listeners and viewers over the last 100 episodes. If you do enjoy these podcasts, make sure you do subscribe on YouTube and follow on your audio platform of choice. But thank you. Thank you for listening to these podcasts, and hopefully we'll have another 100 and more to come in the Welcome back to another episode of the TFR podcast. We are back today to review the Hungarian Grand Prix and a little bit of a recap or a grading, if you like, of the season so far in 2025. JV Kippy joins me on the podcast once again. And JP, it was, I don't know, a bit of an interesting Hungarian Grand Prix, which we were saying in the preview that it could sometimes be a race where it can be a little bit dull or a little less action that ends up happening. But in the end, we actually had quite a few storylines come out from it, and particularly the ending of the race, it kind of was a slow burner that built up to almost a grandstand finish, if you like.
Yeah. I think the final two laps are pretty thrilling because of the Piastri's lockup and and also the one stop versus two stop strategy make all the things that happen like in the very end. But like in the middle race is pretty mediocre. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It was quite a heavy strategy element to this race, which is what we've seen before. And you need to stick with it. You kind of needed to be patient because it was all gonna, reach a boiling point in the final moments. And it was actually Charles Leclerc who was on pole position and led most of the race. But it was then a bit of a straight fight between the two McLarens in the final kind of stint of the race, where Lando Norris went for a one-stop strategy after getting a poor start at the beginning. It enabled him to do a different strategy to everyone else, and that ended up being the race-winning strategy, with him holding off from Oscar Piastri in the final couple of laps. What did you make of the win for Norris, JP? I mean, it was very much a test of his kind of mettle, really, and a test of his kind of skills in terms of dealing with the pressure, which he's struggled with before, and this was probably one of his best examples of being able to manage that.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of the momentum coming back for Lando. Like I said in the last week, Lando got need to like cover these mistakes in the last things. I think like he did it very well last week in the Grand Prix. Not for one stop, he really needs to be like consistent on the hard sides, and he managed to pull that off. Also, yeah, and also for Oscar, he's only like 8 or 9 points ahead of Lando, which is kind of a worrying deficit for his championship. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, it was one of those races where it was the kind of 14-pointer, if you like, in terms of the swing of whatever happens, and that was why it was critical for Norris's championship for him to hang on
Hmm.
with Piastri. It wasn't just like any other race, because we're obviously into this summer break now where there's a real shut off from F1 for a good 4 weeks or so, and for Norris to get that gap closed up after losing out in Belgium, it was absolutely vital. And we had that big moment, didn't we, JP, at the end of the race where Piastri was gaining, and then sent one down the inside, locked up the tyres, and there was a moment there where they could have crashed. We could have had our Hamilton-Rosberg moment, but they just missed. I mean, it was so close, wasn't it, for an absolute disastrous race, really, for the two McLarens.
Yeah. Also, I think this happens before. Like I believe in Austria, which is turn four
Mm,
after the second after the second stop. Yeah.
yeah.
Oscar nearly ran into back of Lando. That this happens again. So I think Oscar need to refocus on how he overtakes Lando, especially on all the dive bombs. So I don't think like Oscar really pull off dive bomb really easily for him. Like he is more like a switchback person. Like he like to break earlier, using all the lines to overtake people. But yeah, I think you need to like focus on that a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting point actually, because obviously Piastri's always been this driver that is ice cold and has the great mentality, and that's probably one of his biggest advantages over Lando in terms of this championship battle. But this time around, yeah, you're right. He did the similar thing to what he did in Austria, where it was almost a little bit all or nothing, chucking it up the inside like that, and they got away with it. And in the end, it's only 7 points dropped for Piastri. But is that maybe a little crack in the armor there, JP, where Piastri now is starting to show that maybe he's not so ice cold as before?
Yeah, I believe so. Obviously, every driver have their drawbacks and their like crackings inside their minds. Yeah, I think, but I still think like the summer break is a good stuff for him. Like a 4 week break will like reset him, tune back into that ice cold momentum, and maybe a good result in Netherlands will help him. Yeah.
Absolutely, and you have to say Piastri has got certain circuits that are more kind of tailor made to him, and then obviously Norris has those himself. And Hungary was a bit of a target, if you like, for Norris to get a good result. And it wasn't looking so good at the start. He had an awful start, didn't he? Where he tried to get down the inside of Piastri into the first corner after the lights went out, and he kind of got a bit squeezed, or he just committed to it too much, which then allowed Russell and Alonso to get in front of him, JP. But in some ways, was his bad start the making of his race, because he was able to go on the one stopper, because he probably wouldn't have done that if he was at the very front.
No, I don't think so because yeah, if Lando go for the same stop as Piastri, like if he did a two stop, even if he had a good start, let's say he's still at the back foot of Oscar, he have to like pit his like maybe 1 or 2 laps after Oscar because McLaren always prioritize the driver who is at the better track position. So if they did a two stop, it's basically a white flag. So I think they either committed for one stop or I honestly don't think Lando really think about two stops.
Mm. But that was really the saving grace for him, wasn't it? Because about halfway
Yeah,
through
yeah.
the race, we never thought Lando was going to win that one. I mean, I don't think anyone realistically imagined that because of the nature of the track. But kind of somehow it did work. And was that maybe an element there, JP, of Lando showing one of his other strengths, is kind of tire management and actually the pace kind of late into a stint on a tire? Because for a while, Piastri had those fresh tires and was gaining and gaining on Lando, but then he kind of reached him and didn't really find a way past. I mean, is that maybe part of the circuit as well, or is there more credit to Norris in this situation?
Yeah, obviously there's the personality of the track, it's very narrow. We call it like Monaco without all the close barriers.
Mm.
There's a reason for that. And also, but I think Norris did very well, like just very well. His last stint on hard tires were superb. This is I think this is always the case for him. Like in dry track, you give him a hard tires, light fuel, he always did wonderful things on it. But yeah, I think also he managed to like pull less mistakes than in Belgium. He's more of a like to be a defender than attacker, this which also favors him in Hungary. Yeah. So I think yeah, he improves himself a little bit, but also the track favors him. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's a good point there you made of like maybe he does prefer being that defender instead of the attacking driver, because we've seen that before, that Lando's overtaking skills aren't exactly the greatest, but maybe that is the right thing for him. It is to be the car in front and it is defending, and that's what he seems to prefer. Because if you think about it, in Austria, he did that pretty well, and he hung on in front of Piastri throughout the whole race. It felt like where Oscar was all over him. So it was a great victory for Lando, which was not looking like it was going to be the case. It was looking like even more points dropped at the start. But he recovered well, and fair play to the team as well for letting them race in this way. I mean, where do we see this going now? Once the summer break's finished, we obviously have Zandvoort, Monza, and then it starts to kind of a few Asian races until it goes over, to South and North America. How do you see the championship at this stage, JP? I mean, is this very much now going to be race by race, or is where do you put the momentum?
Well, to be honest, I feel like it's more of a race by race situation right now
Mm,
because, like I said, because these two have very different favorite tracks in terms of their driving styles. So it's basically race by race, and also you never know when Mercedes or Ferraris or even Red Bull will catch up. So, well, it's still an unknown place, but I definitely think it's a good momentum for Lando right now.
absolutely. Well, we'll obviously find out in a month or so's time what will next happen. But elsewhere in Hungary, it was real mixed emotions for Charles Leclerc. Had a fantastic pole. You have to say that was one of the best poles of the season. I know part of that is because the McLarens kind of mucked up as well, and that kind of played its own factor. But you have to say Charles Leclerc really pulled off a lap from nowhere. I don't think anyone also thought that Ferrari was going to be on pole in Hungary, and he was leading for so long, JP, and was looking quite comfortable. You'd have to say. I mean, Piastri wasn't exactly near him in terms of DRS and making attempts to take the lead off him, but it all came down to that last stint where they put the hard tires on again, and the pace absolutely fell off a cliff. I mean, in the end, I think it was 45 seconds. He was off the leaders at the end of the race and lost the podium as well. He was absolutely raging on the radio, and in the end, it all turned out to be a bit of a bad result when it was looking so good. I mean, what was your thoughts on Leclerc's weekend, JP?
Well, obviously, that's a phenomenal qualifying performance we see right there. Um, we often say that Charles Leclerc is one lapper, and this really shows what he can do during a lap. I mean, honestly, I know the wing like pick up a little bit after Charles finished the lap. So after Charles finished, I think every driver who's starting a lap did not improve. So that was a bit of a luck for Charles, but you can't take away the fact that he just drove like one hell of a lap. But on the race pace, to be honest, I think Ferrari should also stick to one stop. They are committed too much to avoid the undercuts of the McLaren, so they go for the two stops. Um, yeah, but I think their hard tire pace are just too much. That's unacceptable. I think his hard tire pace is the slowest in the top 10. Well, even Lewis is the slowest of all the packs, which is pretty devastating. And also, I just saw the news that I heard there's a chassis crack in Charles Leclerc's car, which is fairly unusual for a Formula One car.
Well, I think there's maybe something else that's happened there, and they're saying that to kind of put a bit of a different look on it. But it was really, like I say, down to that last stint where it all fell apart. I mean, like I said, his radio message, I think that's probably one of the longest ever I've seen come up on the screen. It almost didn't fit on the entire screen with how long. I mean, I've got it here actually. So he was saying, "This is so incredibly frustrating. We've lost all competitiveness. You just have to listen to me. I would have found a different way of managing those issues. Now it's just undrivable. It's a miracle if we finish on the podium," which he didn't in the end. And I think the interesting thing, JP, is what George Russell said after the race. He
Yeah,
said,
about the plank stuff. Yeah.
mm, yeah, because they've had this before. Do you remember in Austria, they had really good pace in qualifying, and it came to the race, and again they were like absolutely miles off, and they
Yeah.
still got the result on that race, so nobody really probably thought too much about it. But the gaps were huge to the McLarens, and I think what George was saying about that raising the tire pressures to then bring the car up a little bit to then reduce the kind of scraping on the plank. I absolutely think that's what's happened, JP. I don't think they'd want to admit that, but I think that's exactly what's happened here in terms of they've done that with those hard tires. They've made the pressures higher, and then they've just lost all pace.
Yeah, I think because the weather is. I think the last thing's weather is pretty much the same as the Chinese Grand Prix, which is like pretty cold, 20 plus degrees. You got the hard tires on. Everyone is on light fuel, and Ferrari just don't have the pace. And also, even in that race, they are not even that fast. I think they are a little bit slower than Red Bull in that race, and even by so they got DSQ. So
Mm.
that's pretty interesting to say. Yeah,
And I think this is the point. They would not have wanted another China where both cars get disqualified,
got
and it's,
disqualified.
what's the point? So they might as well sacrifice something. But obviously, with what Charles was saying there's clearly something else they could have done that he's either said about or what we don't know, and they probably won't tell us what that discussion was before the race. But this is clearly a problem with the car that has been there all season. Because if you think China, I think what's that, second race of the season? I think right the way back at the very
Yeah.
beginning, and they've just not had any race pace all season long. And yeah, I don't know really. Do you think this is something that they can fix this season, or is this more like an issue that is just they have to accept that's what we have for the rest of the season, and it's an kind of solvable problem?
Well, I think it's a like a problem will go through the whole season. I think this will still happen like in places like Kota, which the flank still scrapes a
Yeah.
little bit more, and Ferrari will just they have to live up with it because they already bring their like rear suspension upgrade. They ca Every team can't bring a new chassis, obviously, so otherwise you have to raise your ride height. Otherwise you got to change your flexible wing. Maybe it will help a little bit, but otherwise I don't think there's any other real solutions to it.
Yeah, which is super frustrating, and you can kind of see it again coming through with Charles. But obviously, on the other side of the Ferrari garage, Lewis Hamilton, he was having his own meltdown, wasn't he, this weekend? Because, I mean, again, a bad qualifying and nothing to show for in the race, and he had, well, probably his biggest kind of, I don't know what you'd really call it. He seemed like a broken man, if you like, after that qualifying, because the way he was talking, it was saying, like they need to get a different driver, and I'm just not good enough anymore, and it was quite shocking, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, for Lewis Hamilton, we can he's definitely if not the one of the greatest of all time. We can definitely say that. Lewis, he's more like a mental side of the man. When I mean mental, mentally, he's more like he like to set his mind in a flow state and drive the car, but he just can't find the state anywhere in the Ferrari. It's just weird for me, and everything is so unnatural, and you have to really like use his mind, use his brain to think about how to drive the car, which is feels super unnatural for him.
Yeah, and it's really showing the kind of cracks in this whole kind of season so far for Lewis, because it was obviously going to always be very difficult for him going to Leclerc's kind of team, if you like, because Ferrari have always been behind Charles, and that's not going to suddenly change. But I think there was hope from some people that Lewis would be able to rediscover his form of old, and yeah, suddenly kind of become a challenger at the very, very top once again. But it's just not happening, is it? I mean, what about the big quote, if you like, where he says, about changing the driver? What do you make of that? I mean, should Ferrari change the driver? Is Lewis kind of past it? What do you put it out there?
No, I definitely don't think Ferrari should change the driver. On the other side, who can Ferrari find? Who can Ferrari find if they want to swap Lewis?
Carlos
They
Sainz?
got. Do you think Carlos really want to go back to Ferrari?
Just putting it out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the problem is Ferrari has done a little bit of backstep. I think problem is on their junior teams. You see, back in 2020, they got Mick Schumacher, they got Robert Schwarzman, they got Callum Elliott, they got Joe Guan. No, they got don't got Joe Guan. They don't got Joe Guan since like 2016. They they got all loads of people, and they decide to put them all in the cars, all in Le Mans, and now, well, to be honest, they are pretty much run out of options to replace Lewis if they really want to. Also, the commercial values of Lewis is just too much.
Mm.
You can't make it's basically what you can find the most in a sport in the Formula One sport history. So yeah, I will never think that swap Lewis is the right decision unless he wants to retire himself.
Interesting, interesting. I mean, what about that aspect of this? Is this Lewis suggesting that he's kind of ready for that, or do you think he'll continue on for the years to come? I know you haven't got a crystal ball, but what would you predict with that? Do you think this kind of stuff is leaning towards that retirement type thing for Lewis?
No, I don't think so. To be honest, I really don't think so. That's just a sad Lewis, as what Nico Rosberg was saying. A sad beaten by his teammate face.
Mm.
What Nico was saying, and he will bounce back. I still do believe he will bounce back, but not as much as he used to can do. Uh, to be honest, I changed my mind about Lewis a lot since 2021 Abu Dhabi, because if he wants to retire, why don't he retire then? Why now? It's a really what's the timing point if you really think of it in that way. You you got you, if you got if he retires in 2020 after 2021, he already got the fame, all right. He got the everyone wants to see him as a GOAT, basically, except like really diehard Max fans, right? But he is Lewis. I'm a Max fan myself, but he is a seven-time world champion. All his amazing drives and his amazing composures that show by all his careers that he will never do that. He I don't think he's a man who's willing to give up. Maybe he will say that, but he won't do it.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting with Lewis because I think like he's without doubt, and I think even the most die-hard Hamilton fans could admit this, that Lewis has lost some one lap pace. And I saw what Anthony Davidson said on the Sky F1 coverage about the fact that these regulations haven't suited Hamilton, and I think that's very true as well. Apart from 2023, his seasons have been kind of worse, and obviously the cars have been worse as well. But by his high standards, we've seen in the past he's had really, really bad cars and still won races and things like that. But I think what's happening now is you could almost say it's similar to Alonso in a sense of like Alonso is still good without a doubt, but he's definitely not as good as he was 10 years ago or something like that, or more,
Yeah, yeah.
when he's in his prime. Hamilton is for sure past his prime now, and he's in the twilight of his career. The question is here is he going to be good enough to beat the likes of Charles Leclerc? If Ferrari rock up next season and they have a championship contending car, they're ahead of the rest, they've got the engine sorted, the car's great, and they're really in the mix. Is Hamilton going to be able to beat Leclerc in a championship fight? I'm not too sure, because I just don't think he's got the pace anymore as what he once had. And do you think, JP, that he would be able to, win another championship? Can he get his eighth again in his career, or is that slowly kind of fading away now?
To be honest, I do still think Lewis can win his eighth title. I don't really doubt that, but it's just a mental. But beating Shao is the thing that you will require huge amount of luck for him. You see, for me, Shao is definitely he is like one of the best one lappers you can find on in the paddock right now. Even can be compared to some of the greats like really great names like Fernando. His one lap pace is definitely at least Sebastian Vettel prime ish.
Really?
Yeah, for me, yeah. I mean, he can deliver that Baku full post in a row for like 4 years. That is very, very impressive for me. Yeah, you really can't make that up. Even if Ferrari is always like a more of a low wobbly car things. Let's say 2019. But yeah, this is but Sal never really had the best of luck. You see, in every season. He just like being a little bit too unlucky with the strategy, with the mechanic failure, with the safety car, just everything. I don't know why, but he just kind of being unlucky all the time. That might do with Lewis' favor because Lewis, to be honest, has always been a more of a lucky guy in his career. You can see jumping to Mercedes, hybrid era, uh, getting Valtteri for teammates. Even he's always been, he creates some of his own luck, but he's a very lucky man indeed. So he can be Shell, but like in a lucky condition. Yeah,
Well, only time will tell with how things will continue for Ferrari and particularly for Lewis Hamilton. And yes, it's going to be one to keep an eye on that with how the rest of the season plays out because, yeah, at the end of the day, Ferrari need the drivers to be performing, but also the drivers need Ferrari themselves to get a good car together. So there's a lot riding on 2026, that is for sure. Moving on though from Ferrari, obviously George Russell picked up a pretty simple podium, you'd have to say, because of Leclerc's, uh, you know, downfall, if you like, in that final part of the race. There was a very spicy moment between the two of them, though, where they had a little battle, if you like, where Leclerc, the first time, George was jumping on the radio, kind of complaining, saying that he was moving under braking. And I saw an edit, JP, where it was like saying, oh, if you think that's moving under braking, and then, like, watch this. And then obviously Leclerc the second time, full on, looked twice, to see where George was, and then darted across as soon as he saw Russell commit to the move. I mean, did you agree with the penalty for Leclerc on this? I mean, I actually just thought it was all quite funny, really, but it was fairly aggressive, wasn't it?
yeah, it was aggressive, but to be honest, let's say they did not crash. Right? It's racing. It's hard racing. To be honest, for me, I think penalty for sure because FI these days are pretty hard with all the erratic driving, this kind of stuff. But I think just 10 seconds is way too much for him. Yeah, I think he's just they're racing hard. They didn't even have a single touch. Um, to leave the car with even if that moving you see that moving in the braking, he still leaves the car with which George can go through and he did not do anything particularly naughty later on. So I don't really think that's a 10-second penalty. Maybe 5 will do, yeah. But 10 is way too much for me.
Yeah. I think that's kind of crazy when nothing actually came from it, and George got past and got the position. So yeah, I think that was definitely frustrated driving though. I think we don't normally see that too much from Charles, and that was just a thing of everything boiling up for him. But yes, George picked up another podium, so he kind of gets back on the top three after not getting on the podium since all the way back in Canada, since they won a race. So a bit of a return to the upper part of the field. And Aston Martin, they had a return of themselves towards the upper end of the field because Fernando Alonso finishing fifth, Lance Stroll as well in the points. I mean, really good, wasn't it, for them? I mean, they've now kind of closed up on kind of Williams, I think it is, in the constructors. I think they've jumped ahead of Sauber and RB. And this was kind of out of nowhere, wasn't it, JP? Because Aston Martin have kind of been a little bit mediocre, and then suddenly the car came alive in Hungary, and it's something to keep an eye on really for the next few races because they could well and truly catch Williams and be the the best of the rest, if you like.
Yeah, I think Aston just literally jumping out of nowhere. Little signs. I saw the news the other day said they did not deliver their new package to Belgium due to some logistic issues. So maybe that's the issue why they are so slow in Belgium. But I definitely did not expect them to be this fast in Hungary. Hungary is first of all not a let's say Aston Martin track is backing even back into the Racing Point for senior times. They're just not fast there. They're usually fast in fast circuits like circuit like Belgium, Monza. They're fasting there, but definitely did not expect them to be this fast in Hungary. If they can do this well in Hungary, I really expect them to do well like Steaming Dutch.
Yeah, and I mean, we were close. We were close to an Alonso podium. If the two McLarens took each other out, we would have had an Alonso podium there, which would have been, I mean, if only that happened. In a non-biased way, I don't want anyone to crash, but I think everyone would have
But
liked to see that.
yeah,
Yes, I think, that would have been quite something. But it could still happen. It could happen in Zandvoort. You never know. We can keep hoping and praying, and Alonso may get another podium before next season. So in the rest of the top 10, we had Gabby Bortoleto in P6. What a drive. I mean, people now starting to say, is he the rookie of the season? What do you make of that, JP? Is he the rookie of the season so far? Or is that being a bit disrespectful to your likes of Isaac Hadjar?
I'm definitely, well, he is definitely one of the best among these rookies. I actually don't really see he's like for, before driving before he got into Formula One. I actually only see him like racing, iRacing, I think, because I see him like, because he's like a really high iRacing player. I believe he's 9,000 and 100 something points. He's about 300 points behind Max because he's also in the red line. So I watched that a lot. Uh, he's more like a wrestling driver. He likes to tend to, wrestle with the car a little bit. Uh, compare with Isaac or Kime, even Oliver Behrman, I won't say he is definitely faster because, like I said, in last year Formula 2, I don't think really anyone really can outperform anyone else. It's just a matter of time, when, where, how you perform, and the final consistency, which brought him to to the championship. But on raw pace, I really don't believe he is definitely the fastest one. But also in terms of Hadjar, as we can all see, RB is a pretty easy car to drive. I think Liam can perform in it, Yuki can perform in it, Isaac can perform in it. So you can't really tell where's the upper limit for Hadjar, especially if you see next year he will, to be honest, 99% being a rebel.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm going to have to kind of get an answer, though, out of you, JP, is who is your rookie of the season? Because there's a good explanation, but you very neatly there avoided committing to a certain driver. So who is the rookie of the season so far?
Right now, Isaac Hadjar.
Okay, I would agree with that. I think as well, Bortoleto is doing a great job and has really took a step up with that car, taking a step up since Spain. But I think Hadjar, over the course of the season so far, has been, the standout, if you like. I mean, if Bortoleto continues on for the rest of the season like this, then, I mean, wow, we've got a real great talent in the F1 because he obviously won F3 in his rookie season, F2 in his rookie season, and then now already getting top 6 finishes in F1 in a Sauber is fair play. Great driving from him. We also had Liam Lawson finish in the points once again in P8. He's continuing a good run of form at the moment. Antonelli was in 10th. He's kind of, again, continuing on his rough patch. And then the other point scorer in 9th, Max Verstappen. I mean, it was a disastrous weekend for Red Bull in terms of their pace. After not looking too bad at Spa, this was a crash down back to reality, wasn't it, JP? I mean, they were awful, weren't they?
Was a total disaster for Red Bull. They didn't got the right strategy. They didn't got the right car, right package. And neither of the driver feel comfortable with the car. Neither can deliver with the car. So it was pretty hectic. Also, I think the change of team principal. I think they still gathering the team a little bit. Laura Mackey, he's more like a soft person, if you can say, than Christian Horner on the prep side. So he, yeah, that's to be honest, pretty different with the rebel culture. So everything is need to be adapted and changed. I think after the race, I don't really feel like Max really wanted to even talk about a race anymore. It's just frustrating. You just driving the DRS train. You only can overtake in the chicanes. The car is basically undrivable for both drivers, and the strategy is a even more disaster. I honestly don't think any of the back runners like Kime, Lewis, and Max will or should do a two stopper. You already lost enough track positions, or all right. So why not just do a one stop? I just don't get it.
Yeah, the strategy was terrible because by pitting early, he just completely lost out massively. And so, yeah, a really terrible kind of weekend for Red Bull and particularly for Verstappen. I mean, Russell is actually closing in on him now in the driver's standing, so that could be something to keep an eye on in terms of who finishes in that top three. Because if the Red Bull continues like that at low speed circuits with Zandvoort coming up as well soon, I mean, that'll be a real worry for Max. Obviously, Zandvoort is only going to get one more chance after this year to win his home race, and at the minute, he's not going to win it this year, is he? I mean, that would take some kind of miracle if he can do that. So, yes, pressure on for them. And so we'll see what Red Bull can do to turn things around. But elsewhere, there wasn't too much to report. All the other teams kind of were well off the points, really. I mean, you had Hadjar in 11th, really not able to kind of get too close to getting past Kimi at the end. But then your likes of Hulkenberg recovered from a bad start, so he was just well out of the points. Williams, Haas, and Alpine all just didn't have the pace in Hungary. They didn't have the pace to get near the points, and so they're going to have to go back to the drawing board a little bit with their cars for after the summer break. I think that's pretty much everything covered for Hungary, but what we'll end this podcast with, JP, is a bit of our mid-season grades for the teams here, and this will be fairly quick fire. It's like we're back to school here. We're gonna alphabetically grade the teams here from A to F, let's say, in terms of what we've made of their season so far. So we're gonna go in championship order of how it stands at the minute. And I think this is going to be a pretty easy one so far. We've got McLaren first up, who are obviously dominating the season, 559 points now, and are going to win the constructors. I think we can probably say this is an A plus, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely an A plus. It got the right machine, everything just goes easier. You don't really need to think about complicated strategies. You can argue that they lost a win in Japan, they lost a pole here and there, but they get the job done. Like they already leading the constructors that like this much. You really can't even ask a bit more than that.
Yes, absolutely. And, we're two drivers in maybe not their prime, but they're definitely not far off that. Yeah, they are an A plus. What about Ferrari? It's kind of weird to think that they're second in the constructors, considering how much of an up and down season they've had. But this is quite a tricky one, actually. What would you grade them?
I would say Ferrari is a B minus.
Okay.
B minus, yes. Especially when you compare them to last year, they're really not off the pace with McLaren's all the Red Bulls. They are really like three teams are really close, but I feel like this year only McLaren have took a big step forward, and everyone else maybe Ferrari have like progressed a little bit, but it's just not enough for them. And also, I don't think the Garrett. There are too many like little tiny mistakes. Still, like good at Ferrari mistakes, slow pit stops, something like that. These still hurting them. But in the end, it's still the problem of the car. It's just you don't have, if you don't have a car which is fast enough, this thing will eventually definitely happen.
Okay, okay. I hear what you're saying. I'm actually going to go with a C because I think they in another season where Red Bull and Mercedes have basically got two cars that are scoring regular points, they are comfortably the fourth best this season, and I think they're a bit fortunate in some ways that they are where they are in the constructors, and it kind of should be worse, but that's why I'm not giving them any lower than that. But I think a C for Ferrari with their season so far. What about Mercedes? Again, what I was saying there, they're a bit of a one-man team at the minute with the way Kimi is performing, but they have had some great results this season. If you think of Canada, where they got that win and obviously a double podium, but then they've kind of fell off a little bit recently. So where are we thinking for them? What are we agreeing Mercedes?
I'm going to put a C plus for Mercedes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so obviously Mercedes still is in its patterns is only good in either tracks that really low temps. So if the road is really rough, they perform extremely well in these kind of conditions. But other than that, it's still just at Mercedes. The team is still like performing the strategy well, the pit stop well, everything else. Basically, Kimi is like in his rookie year, he's still adapting, which is, well, to be honest, fine for me. Oh, it's still a transition year for Mercedes. Everything is changing. Last year, the regulations. It's just a normal transition year for me, but and everything was like went into play. Just the car isn't fast enough. It's a
Okay.
bit like it's a bit like 2007 Renault, if
Really?
you can say that. Yeah,
That is a niche pick. I mean, not everyone will understand that reference, but I get what you mean though, JP.
yeah. It just low, but everything else just runs into orders. We can also like that. Yeah, physically isn't really fast enough. But he's consistent enough. He can score points. He get the team big results. Hecky is still a new driver who can learn from his teammate. Everything is still looking going the right direction.
Yeah, I must say George has been. This is probably his best year in F1. I would say. I mean,
Yeah,
I think he's been super good in terms of being, not being able to compete with McLaren at a lot of races because he just can't. But he's getting the max out of what he can do, and yeah, he's maybe not had too many exciting races apart from Canada, but he's always got that maximum result, and that's why he's fought for the drivers. And yeah, he has carried that team, and I still think Mercedes could actually finish second in the constructors this season because I think of how well George is driving. They just need Kimi to kind of get through this rough patch and kind of just get back into the proper points very, very soon. Next up is Red Bull. Now, Red Bull, they've won a couple of races this season with Max, have 4 pole positions as well, and some unbelievable laps for Max as well at Japan and Saudi and Silverstone as well. Actually, that's another one that was incredible. But as a team, they have had a bit of a rough season, haven't they? I mean, that's an understatement in some sense. With the whole Christian Horner thing recently, that's not to do with obviously performance in terms of that doesn't change too much in terms of our grade, but they had the driver swap at the beginning with Lawson getting booted out after only a couple of races, Yuki going in, and then just more of the same, really. What would you grade them? I think it's not been too good, has it?
let's say for Red Bull. Now I'm gonna be harsh. This is probably a D minus.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, yeah. First of all, the strategy isn't as good as before. You can definitely say that it's often pitting to the wrong window, didn't get timing right. Also, a slow pit stop like in Japan nearly cost Max the win, the 3 second pit stop. Also, the problem is mainly on the car. There's a I usually call it the Red Bull. I got a theory. I call it the Red Bull paradox. If you got a car, which is, let's say, car A is faster than car B, but 19% of the drivers can perform sense performance of the car B, but only percent of the drivers can perform 19% of the car A. Which car is faster? You can't really say that. You can't really say which one is faster. That's the problem with Red Bull. I'm not from this point. I'm still not quite sure what how fast that RB21 is, because you see in some tracks I don't really think it's that bad, because I don't really think you can overdrive a car's aerodynamic and mechanical limits. You only can perform on the limit. Max is good at perform on the limit. Maybe the car is hard to drive, but it's still fast in some term of environments. But you just have it's such a small window, which is basically undrivable for anyone else. So you, I feel like, but as what most engineers says, a faster, the theoretically faster car is always the car that is harder to drive. So that makes the Rebel car even more foreshadowing. So you can't really say it's particularly slow. Like it's slow in Hungary, it's slow in Monaco, it's slow in some certain type of tracks, but in some tracks, yeah, you can Max is on poles. You I know Max is a great driver, but really can't say that Rebel is the car that is fourth fastest that we can. You can't say that. So it's pretty mystery right now.
Yeah, I think that's the key word there. It is a mystery. It's so hard to tell what car it's going to be, by the weekend, really. And it's I feel a lot of it is just it's Max having to just grab the bull by the horns, literally, with the Red Bull, and somehow find the pace out of that car, just unlock the potential with the perfect lap, and maybe fight the difficulties that come with the car. And he's clearly able to do that, like you say, at tracks like Silverstone, Suzuka, etc., where he's been able to get the one lap pace out of it. But yeah, I think for Red Bull, Max is obviously staying there now for the future. For now, but it's not looking great, is it? It's not looking great, and there's not too much to get excited about there. And for Yuki as well, I mean, the fact that he's actually the worst of all of the Red Bull drivers when you include RB at the minute in terms of results and performances, it's just not looking great. So I have to agree with a D minus. What about Williams next up? They are the best of the rest at the minute. They're sitting fifth on 70 points, 18 points ahead of Aston Martin, 19 ahead of Kick Sauber. So Williams at the minute, they are sitting well, and I actually think a lot of this is to do with the good form of Alex Albon. I think he's had a great season so far, and has really carried that team when Carlos has been still trying to get used to it. And I'm going to go with a B. Well, I'll just go with a B for Williams. I was going to go with a B plus, but I'm going to settle with a B at the minute. What do you think, JP?
Yeah, definitely agree on that. Williams do what they can do and knows what they can't do. Remember at the beginning of the year, James Vowles had the interview. He said it's the only chance that we can try everything out. He said he had quote like let's smash everything, anything. And I feel like he got the right momentum, he got the right mindset into the team. He got Carlos in the teams. Maybe he is still trying to adapt it, but everyone is still like helping him into this environment. Alex already the team leader of this team, performing really well. Like the also the other, we always know that Williams that they won't bring from the beginning of the year. We know they won't bring too many upgrades, but now the minute we can still see them, we definitely can see them frequently into the point area.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think it wasn't that long ago when Williams were the worst car on the grid, and here we are now, fifth, and only getting better. I mean, yeah, great work from them, and hopefully for their sake it continues, and they can kind of solidify that position for the rest of the season. Aston Martin, we kind of touched on them already a little bit on this podcast, but they are kind of, it's a little bit tricky to say them because they've obviously had that jump up in performance in Hungary. But I'm going to give them a C because I think it's just okay. Maybe actually a C minus. I'll go with that because they've been okay, but now they're kind of getting a little bit better. Would you go with a C minus, JP, or have they been worse than that?
A bit lower than that. If you like, you take a Hungary, I will go with a E actually.
An
So
E. Oh,
real, yeah, without
ouch.
Hungary, it's definitely an E for me. Yeah, you you. I know Lance deliver point like at the beginning of the year, but to be honest, these points are more. We can all agree on that. It's more about luck than pure of the car. All the team delivers, all the strategy. So yeah,
Wow.
um,
Wow.
yeah,
Well, ruthless from you, JP. E. I think that is
yeah.
quite harsh. But you're entitled to your
But
opinion.
but after Hungary, like we can say it's a D plus. We can definitely see with the upgrades, they are still like trying to find something in the car, trying to do what they can do. Over the course of the year, over the course of the season, they're not really quite giving up right now. So yeah, I think they are still working on it. Alonso maybe a little bit slower than before, but everyone is still like got the motivation back. Even like and Lance is a kind of a bit complaining guy sometimes, but everyone is like hardworking and still like trying to pull this off. Yeah.
Okay. What about Sauber? Now, what would you grade them? Because they didn't have the greatest start of the season and they were bottom of the standings. But then suddenly, after Spain and the upgrades that they brought, they just transformed. And Nico Hulkenberg getting that incredible podium at Silverstone, and then Gabby Bortoletto as well getting a bunch of points recently. They now are up into seventh in the standings, not far off Williams, like I say, in fifth. What would you grade them? Because they're really, they've compared to the previous couple of years, they have took a massive turnaround.
Yeah, I'll give them B plus. I think
Mm.
it's not a B just because it's the first a little bit half of the season because they're really slow at that time. It's definitely the slowest car on the grid. Right now, after all the upgrades, I think they have scored points every race since Spain. Um, and they think quite got the pace. Also, I think the Saubers nowadays they are really good at like long things. They don't really make the tire degradation look too bad. I don't know. It's more about the drivers or about the car, but it looks good on their green car. Um, but than that, it's a really healthy combination between Nico Hulkenberg and Gabriel Bortoletto, young and old, looking out for each other, driving. It's like Sonny Hayden and then his teammate, right? Yeah, and the magic podium we talk about. It's just like the movie. We at the beginning of the season we definitely won't believe Nico Hulkenberg will end his podium streak in a green Sauber in that car, which is so terribly slow at that time.
Yeah, no, I think they've been one of the stories of the season how they've turned things around so far. So I absolutely agree with a B plus for Sauber because they are on a serious good run of form. A few teams left. We've got RB or V Carb or Racing Bulls, whichever one you want to go for. They started off quite well. But then they've kind of now fallen off a little bit recently. Even Isaac Hadger has not quite had the best run of form since Liam Lawson has kind of more been the regular point scorer. But obviously, Isaac Hadger really started well at the beginning of the season. So, again, maybe a tricky team to grade. I'm kind of thinking more of like a C for RB. But what are you kind of thinking, JP?
C minus for RB. That minus is mainly for their strategy team.
Yes,
Their
yes.
strategy team is really, really costing them low chunk of points. Like in
Mm,
China, maybe they can even get a let's say a double point and they end up with 0 points. So it's
mm.
I think at one point they're like P6, P7, and they finish like P14, P15. So that's unacceptable. That's absolutely unacceptable, especially for midfield team. You have to grab those points if you see them. You have to grab those. Otherwise, you just lose you just lose too much points, and just even if you have a slightly faster car than others, it just doesn't pay off.
Yeah, I think so. You kind of forget about that at the start, where yeah, there was points just kind of getting chucked away really by them, so they could have been even closer in that fight for fifth. But yeah, I'd agree with the points you made there that they have been good, but they could have been better. So what about Haas? They are a little bit further back in ninth, and well, down on 35 points. Ocon had some great results towards the beginning of the season, didn't he, JP? And then Behrman, he's been a bit unlucky, hasn't he? He's had a hell of a lot of 11th place finishes, and then, he's had some rough races as well. So, Haas, I think they're still in the mix, aren't they, for fifth, but they are really, the weaker one at the minute.
Yeah, the problem with that is both of driver can deliver, but only one driver deliver each time. That's their
Mm,
problem right now. Um, from my opinion, Esteban is a really, really, really fast driver. Even like even maybe let's say in his really good days, he can beat Lando, he can be up there with Shower. Um, it's just unlucky, It's just unlucky. Like Behrman's crashing, Silverstone FP2. He should have making the Q3, but got that high 10 great penalty, which is fairly well. I will really say unlucky because of the red flag. Um, yeah, but just two driver has the pace. They don't have the luck. The strategy is pretty mediocre for Haas. It's just normal. Basically, everything is pretty normal. It's just lack of luck. Yeah, basically lack of luck. I don't think really anything out there like.
what are we going to grade them then, JP? What are we gonna commit to here?
Let's say let's say D plus because I don't think they as a team perform better than RB.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go with D minus for them. Very close to what you said, but yeah, kind of what you were saying there as well. They've kind of thrown away a lot this season, and apart from the odd great result at the beginning, like in China, they've got a lot of work to do. They want to catch the others. And lastly, if you think Haas have been underperforming, Alpine are bottom of the constructors, and they've had a dismal season. Pierre Gasly for them has been the only one really scoring anything because obviously they had Jack Doohan at the start, which didn't work. Franco Colpinto came in, and it hasn't worked. And it's all looking fairly doom and gloom. Are they certain to be rock bottom of the standings this season?
Well, if nothing like last year Brazil Grand Prix happened,
Yeah,
they are definitely stunned at last, to be honest. For Alpine, I will give them E minus. It's
yeah,
it's it's still at the E because only because Pierre's still in that team performing. If it took out Pierre, it's the F minus. You can even say that.
sure.
It's rough. Yeah, it's rough for Alpine. They kind of like growing to that rebel pattern. You change the second driver all the time, and they still can't build up confidence. Then you sack them, and you got another one. Maybe next time, you don't know who if they get rid of Franco. Maybe Paul Aaron, maybe somebody else. But you have to let the driver build the confidence, build the connection towards the car. Afterwards, if they don't perform, well, that's fine. You you change them, but you have to let them have that connection, have that feeling first. Otherwise, it's just not working and it's unhealthy. Not only senior team, but also to the junior academy team. So it's just an unhealthy pattern. Also, I don't really think the presence of Flavio into that team really helped them because, as we all know, Flavio is a pretty, well, I can't think of a milder way to say dictating man.
Yes,
He
that's for
likes,
sure.
yeah, he is a he's a very demanding man who like all the power into his hand. And we have already seen like change of team principles at the beginning of the season. Um, well, I think it just increased that unhealthy, toxic environment in Anston, and he is absolutely desperate to drag the team out of that mud, but it just seemed not working at this time. Also, they're canceling the engine program at the end of the year, going to Mercedes. Maybe a right move, maybe a wrong move, but to be honest, for me, if they go to Mercedes, I don't think they will end well. Yeah,
Yeah, Alpine, they are. Yeah, it's looking a bit of a disaster, isn't it? They need something
yeah.
to just transform their season. And so, yeah, I agree with an E minus for them. It's been pretty disastrous, and I can't see why they would beat any of the other teams this season in the constructors. I think all the other teams have got better lineups and a better car, and yes, it's not looking good at all for them. And yeah, more woes to come. Right, that is our mid-season grades done, and this is going to be that for this week's podcast. Thank you, JP, for joining me on this week's episode. And this is actually the 100th episode of the TFR podcast. I was meant to mention this earlier, and I've suddenly remembered it now. So thank you to all the listeners and viewers over the last 100 episodes. If you do enjoy these podcasts, make sure you do subscribe on YouTube and follow on your audio platform of choice. But thank you for listening to these podcasts, and hopefully we'll have another 100 and more to come in the future. We'll be back in probably a week or so's time to do another pod if there's been any news in the summer break, and then obviously we'll have in a few weeks our preview to the Dutch Grand Prix. But thank you, JP, and we'll see you all in the next one.